All right, take three. Always a joy. Always a joy. All right, let's see if. No, recently. All right, ladies and gentlemen. So, okay, try. No. Boom. Yes. Excellent. Hey, Jeremy. Perfect. Yes, it wouldn't be as good. I can hear you. Can you hear me just well? Hmm. All right. How about now? Yeah, ready.
All right.
All right. Cool. So yeah, in the original one, before all the technical difficulties, kind of was starting out with, how I came up with the idea for the show. Shared a little bit of that with you, and that's kind of how we started with like, might as well just, do this interview. Share with the world kind of a few things that we've been resonating on. And one of the things that really, really came out about what you do, and I'm not going to spoil it for those that are watching, is the fact that you focus on forgiveness. And I sent you a message Sunday, I think it was Sunday or Monday, about like replaying that conversation and what happened to me. And that's kind of like what I really, really wanted to highlight with doing the longest yard. I wanted it to be where people can learn about that final 10% of each project that you're working on. Um, how do you were able to level up, push through those difficulties, and what are some of the things that you've learned along that way? Um, so jumping into things, why don't you introduce yourself for the audience here today?
Yeah, well, those are quite a few questions clustered together. So definitely digest it here in a sec. But yeah, I'm born and raised from Huntsville, Alabama. Parents are from Iowa. Moved up to Nashville. Gosh, it'll be 6 years this year, and it's kind of crazy to even say that because time has flown by so fast. And so, yeah, I grew up in business, doing different stuff. I have experience in overseas. Just I was a missionary overseas for a year, so I've got experience in international like nonprofit stuff, and so it's really cool. And then just taking the experience from when I was growing up to the stuff when I was my first equity partnership when I was 18, did over multi six figures under 9 months, which was really fun. And it was a local service-based business, and been consulting and doing things here and there. When I moved up to Nashville. It took a couple of years as a hiatus, and last year we jumped right back into it. So it's been really fun, and really taking the experience from what I've come from now to be able to make that into a message of where people can really resonate and also overcome the things that I came from. So it's just the whole point is just to really let people know that they're not alone, and really be able to just be able to equip people with from one survivor to another, and to know that they're not alone, and even if they're going through something that may be a little bit different, there's some things that are um, there are principles and stuff that are interchangeable that can be applied to their life, and it affects their personal and business life and every aspect of it too. So it's really cool.
Hmm. And I really want to dig in. I know the story is not full of like glitter and romance, but it's an important one,
Yeah.
right? It's one that has kind of given you the ability to really leverage that experience and help people in a very unique way. Um, do you mind digging into that a little bit? Like, what was that long yard for you? Like,
Well, you mean the experience of what I came from to now being able to help with forgiveness. So yeah, I story in a nutshell. Story starts when my parents divorced when I was 10. I'm the oldest of three siblings, and my mom was a single parent raising me, my brother, and sister. And for the first 2 years of that, my dad, I really looked up to my dad, and he ended up starting to tell me some lies about my mom and um, really turned me against my mom, and it to the point of where I was acting out so much, and my mom actually made me go live with my dad and work in his business to learn a lesson, and I was just like, oh, it was the worst feeling ever. But I remember going out on the job site, and I noticed that with when going out there, I realized that my dad didn't want to destroy our relationship,
Hmm.
and the employees didn't want me to cry wolf. And
Hmm.
I was just like, oh, okay, that's kind of weird and awkward at the same time. Don't really know how to process it, but hey, what's up, Derek? And so I realized that as sitting back and working with him for a couple of weeks, that these guys could not talk to each other. Like they couldn't communicate, and I'm just over here like, oh, this is so annoying. And I'm 12 years old, I have 12 going on 13, and I'm just like, how do these guys like they're saying the same thing? I don't understand what's going on, and ended up over the following 6 years, working with my dad and just really just working like mediating the communication between the employees and him and at 12 years old, I was doing HR. I did had no idea what I was doing. I just didn't like them being idiots on the job site. And so that's where
Wow.
yeah, leveraged well, I used that leverage from both sides to really bring in stuff. I mean, by the time I was 16, that's where I wanted to commit suicide. And I was addicted to a lot of different drugs, very depressed and low self-esteem, didn't know who I really was. And I just all the trust that I had gained back from being busted a while back prior to that was destroyed, and I felt like my life was over. But then that moment is that night is the night I turned my life around. And over the following 2 years of that 6 year stint working with my dad, I restored the relationship with him and ended up having to resign because he allowed some unethical things happening in the workplace. He ended up, after that happened, he ended up, being murdered, and I'm grateful to have seen him the Thursday before the Monday when I got that call. And overcoming that grief, there was a guy that I became a partner with, and I just became a partner with and was doing the marketing, the rebranding for a local landscaping company. It was phenomenal, and they just handed the company off to their sons this year, which is really exciting. But then fast forward to going overseas as a missionary for a year and moving up to Tennessee to last September, they finally found the guy accused for my dad's 6 year cold case. And that's
Wow.
when yeah, and that's we've already had the preliminary hearing and stuff, and I didn't really. It was something that I had came to terms with, and where and now yeah, I took that message when I got the phone call. I was like, finally, it's time that I can actually take the mess that I came from, turn it into a message, and say, look, this is what I've come from. This is how I've overcome it, and really help equip people with those with that mindset, with the different principles and practices that I put in place in my own life to live in peace and actually enjoy life and have fun, live life and have fun in the process. And because I mean, thinking about every 60 seconds, I mean, you can Google this. I mean, this is Google's most recent update is that every 60 seconds, 105 people are dying.
Hmm.
And I'm thinking in the back of my mind, how many like is the person in front of me in one of those 105 for every
Right.
60 seconds?
Right.
You know,
Right.
and that's where
Oof.
it's like, yeah, and that's why it's like now, like like even if I make a mistake, how can I rectify it immediately? How can I like, keep those relationships? Because like it's the same thing as that when you cut open a tendon, that it'll take time to heal, but what happens is you bandage it together, you bring it together, and then the fibers intermediate all of a sudden start to heal back together, but it's one fiber at a time. And it's like with the
Mm.
relationship that when things are broken, like they were between me and my dad, it took time to restore that with healthy boundaries, standards, how I saw myself and how I was able to love him as a result of that. That we're now, I'm now getting the opportunity to help equip people on the personal development side, but as a springboard from the personal development side over into the corporate speaking side of it to help with develop a healthy culture within a company when it comes to conflict resolution because a lot of times people don't understand how to really navigate awkward situations and they've got more pink elephants in the zoo.
Mm,
and they have no idea how to deal with that stuff. And because of a lot of political correctness, a lot of a lot of laws and different things on how to approach people, and that's why it's like it's so important to be able to whenever I go into those environments to really connect with the people because the workplace is a result of a person's heart. And once
hmm
we embed that mercy and grace into the heart of people, the
mm,
business is a byproduct, the home is a byproduct, and that's where it's like being able to enrich economies, heal a heart, heal the ecosystem, and that's
mm.
what's so important.
And I love that. Like, it's one of those things that I think that's how we really resonated well together is we both work in the branding space. We're both trying to help, empower cultures, help messages cross different boundaries and, help people connect.
Right.
And that thing where how you feel when you leave your house, the things that happen on your way to work, how much of that are you carrying into your work environment?
Oh my gosh,
And
yeah.
do you even have, all the tools to be able to go through your day and handle what's going on with everyone else in, your
Right.
workplace? So what is like the one thing you found within that entire process that has been a common thread, no matter where people are from, what they believe in, has been like that thing that's holding them back?
They want people to understand them without first trying to understand others first.
Hmm.
Like they want to be heard, but they don't want to understand. Like that's the number one thing. Like for the past year, I've been just privileged to be able to help people overcome the loss of a loved one through their grieving process. But one thing I noticed was forgiving yourself. Being able to because it's that old saying, you love your neighbor as you love yourself. But let's flip it a bit. Let's just rearrange some stuff.
Right.
Not just that you love your neighbor as you love yourself. Like it's like you better do it. We hear that and we're like, oh gosh, I better love my neighbor as I love myself. No, as you love yourself, so shall you love other people.
Mm.
And that's the true meaning of it. That's the definition of that phrase, because it's more so of an observation of how we're hardwired as man. I think I'm lagging up here a second.
Oh, you're good. You're good on my end.
Okay, great.
Uh,
Awesome.
yeah.
And that's why it's like as you sorry about that. So I had some messages coming in. It's just kind of crazy, but but as you love yourself, so shall you
hmm
love other people. As you have been hugged, that's the understanding that you have that how to hug other people. As you have that understanding is what you give. Now that's why it's so important to realize that these things that we are going through everyday life that we're living and we're learning and we're growing. And so a lot of
mm
times we have the tendency to shame ourselves, not other people, because if we had a strong foundation of who we were built on the
hmm
inside of us, that kind
Yep.
of stuff of what other people say, it doesn't matter. But if we don't, and we don't have what true north, and we don't have that established, everything else looks good. Just like when you don't have your brand on point with your business and you don't have your stuff, everything looks great. But it's like when you don't have what your morals are, what your principles are, your flair, your flavor, all that stuff established and who you are in your story, and you don't dig down deep in your brand story, so that way it doesn't. I mean, because the deeper you dig on your brand, the deeper it connects to people immediately.
True.
And
So true.
and that's one of the catch 22s with life is and I'm over here, I'm 25 years old, what do I know? It's like, but that's the thing that I've noticed in just my experience. And that's what it's like with people as we're connecting and we're walking together, a lot of times we don't we want people to we want to talk, 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 and I love to talk. And it's like one of the things that I had to learn myself was that, if you want friends, be friendly.
hmm
If you want to be a leader, be a servant.
Mm.
It's like if you want to have a lot of income, serve and educate and give value. Give, so that way you can get. Like that's
hmm
like a lot of these things are so backwards because a lot of the media and a lot of movies and stuff we're putting into ourselves that because everything that we watch and listen to and on social media and everything has a proponent to cater into how we're thinking right now. And it's
Yeah.
like, and it goes back down that deep, but it's like all that factors into how we see ourselves, how we love ourselves, how the definition of love. our definition of forgiveness, our definition of hope, our definition of being able to make an impact, our definition of relationships. Like that is what is happening in our culture right now. That if we don't have that
Hmm.
established based on forgiveness, like if we don't forgive ourselves first, if we don't first love ourselves, but first understand that we are loved,
Yeah.
that we had a connection from somebody that with unconditional love, that no matter what you do, no matter how bad you screw up, it's like it's so important that you have people in your life that love you no matter what. And that's what changed
It's
my
true.
life too. That was part of it.
So true. Like, I think that self-forgiveness has been something I know I personally have grappled with. And I think this is a common issue amongst many creatives and entrepreneurs,
Oh yeah.
where you're putting your heart, you're putting your soul into these projects. And whether, a client doesn't agree with something, something in life just happens and knocks you off your, platform,
Right.
or knocks you off that momentum that you had going, like all these things factor in. And the next project you take it into that, the next scenario you take it into that, and you don't realize that maybe you've been doing it 5, 10, 15, 20 years, that you've now amassed so many things that you're carrying that when you reach that project that you probably have been working your entire career towards, you're burnt
Right.
out, you have nothing left to give. So how did you find that being able to forgive yourself frees you from, that burden of being able to just kind of get back into that momentum?
Oh, easy. It's expectation.
Hmm.
Like you have to, I mean, because I'm a creative too. Like I love to, I mean, I love to speak about things. I love to find ways to, I love to be able to, if I understand something, I love to find creative ways to communicate it.
Yeah,
And,
yeah,
and it's like, but also that side of me can, if I don't have the proper expectation, like that expectation is the hinging point, is the focal point of what is done, what is executed. Because we always have this whole thing about social media right now. You got to execute, 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 execute. Yes, duh. But what are you executing on? Like, where are
exactly.
you going? You know, if you're going to just keep doing stuff, you're going to always be busy. You're never going to be productive, and you're never going to actually make any ROI on anything in your business. And so, like when you get knocked off your high horse as a creative, so to speak, is that what happens is you have to ask yourself, what was the foundation of that goal that I set? Like, was it realistic with the resources that I had in my hand, the people that I knew? And if it was, did I communicate properly? Did I actually delegate and actually trust them? Because that's one of the things that I fight every day is trusting my team. And that's something that I'm open about. Because for me, I know up here how I want it. I
Yep,
know
yep,
up here that this is going to look really awesome.
yep.
But then communicating that to my team, who are very mechanical, who are just given the task of knock it out, which is I
Mhm.
love. But also, there's that marrying between the two, that such teamwork of the creative aspect and the logistics aspect of it, and having that right team member in place, so that way you can truly have it to where you can execute it and you can actually to where you can actually make things happen. Because you and I both know creatives are not always punctual.
No,
And
kind of suck at that. And a lot of people are ready to say, yeah, I've never had a creative that's on time, but the creative process isn't logical, right? We do our best to estimate based on things
well,
that, we have data on. But sometimes you get lost in those wormholes.
and that's the biggest thing is that is something that creatives have to hone in on. You know, you
Hmm.
have to be able to create on tap. Sometimes you have
Yeah.
to wait till it just comes to you, but that's a gift that you have to really dial in and be able to discipline. Because it's
Yeah,
like, you know, when it comes to inspiration, if you live on inspiration, you execute on inspiration, you'll never get anything done.
this is so true.
And that's why it's like you have to just do something and then go through and file it down. Like go through it and just get it out. Get it out. And that's why journaling is so powerful, right?
Yep.
And that's why because you have to just dump it out. And then what do? You go back through and oh, okay, cool. That made no sense. Okay, you know what? Whoop, here and then bam. You know, next thing you know, you have something up and going, and then you're like, you do it,
Exactly.
or you do it all of it, and you're like, well, that was dumb, and you just go back through, and
Testing
so
hypotheses. Yep.
absolutely, and that's why it's like you have to just do something. You know, living on the inspiration and the expectation that you're going to get everything done immediately is absolutely stupid. And then also
Hmm.
you have to know that package all the creative side of you. in a way that is going to pull it out, but also be able to file it down. And that's what's so important, man.
I think a lot, and how I've approached it is like inspiration is not gonna happen unless you're working, right?
Relative
A lot
momentum,
of
yeah.
times, people wait on it, like you're saying, and it just never happens. I forgot if it was like a Chinese or Japanese proverb, but it was like, man who stands on a hill with mouth open won't receive a duck in it, right? You kind of have to go out and find the duck somewhere, and whatever that process looks like.
Right.
But that momentum of, continuously going, of being able to, say, all right, here's the idea and here's all the fancy things that could happen, but here's
Mhm.
the problem that I'm really solving. Here's what, is most important in getting this done right here and right now.
Right.
And it's one of those that the more you do it, the more you kind of, and especially this week, putting into just that little bit that we discussed about forgiving yourself, about, being able to better communicate. Because it comes down to being able to communicate better with who you are, right?
Right.
You're not putting yourself or blaming yourself for other people's choices. You're kind of realizing it's on you. It's your choice
Right.
at the end of the day, how you're going to react to this, how you're going to move forward. And I think that was the most magical part of our conversation, where it was just like, wow, like it's so obvious, but it's kind of like hidden in everything that we're doing.
Well, it's kind of like air conditioning. Sometimes it's so natural to our life that we take it for granted, and
True.
it's
True.
something that when we don't have it, we notice. And
Oh, here in Florida, we definitely do notice. Whew.
well, when I was in Colombia for 6 months, dude. I was lived in Barranquilla, and oh my gosh, like it was insane. Like it was
Hmm.
about 90 degrees with 85% humidity.
Wow.
Yeah, you can walk outside with a wrinkled shirt on, and in 30 minutes you don't need an iron, but you need to change your shirt. And yeah, it was pretty bad. It was definitely pretty bad. And I remember I just remember I actually just got a message from one of the guys in Colombia actually just boop, just popped in. But one of one of the coolest things is with forgiveness, it's nothing that is you have to obtain. Like
Hmm.
it's nothing that you have to work for. Like it's
Right.
already there and it's a decision. And see and that's why it's like but understanding and understanding what how to approach the situation, how to navigate these weird dynamics of relationships, especially when they're dysfunctional and different variables involved when it comes to family and friends, strangers, the court system. I mean, different stuff that when you have to like some things take years to restore, but it's those
True.
principles that are every single day interchangeable that can be applied to our life and our workplace and different things that can prevent unnecessary stress that will help keep us focused and on point. And that's what's really key. And it really truly is. And I just realized that the live stream was hidden from my timeline. That's why that's why we're not getting many viewers out there. I was just like, what the world? But but that's where now, man, it's to a point where we just have to really take a step back and really be disciplined and know that that what we're doing right now is it's okay, but also embrace the journey because
Oh, yes.
a lot of times we don't forgive ourselves because we are an entrepreneur and we got to be successful. Ugh. Like I mean I get
That
that.
kind of mindset. Yeah.
I mean I
Ugh.
totally understand that. Excellence is different than perfection. Like, like it's completely different. Perfection is where you feel pressured when you make a mistake that you have to make up for it before anybody else finds out. But
Yeah.
then, but then also, I mean, there are times where you need to get your stuff together and get it done when you actually messed up. I mean, I've been there, and that's where now it's a
Same
matter
here.
of, yeah, and that's where now it's like, okay, I get it, I understand completely. Like, I made a mistake and own up to it, and that's why it's like, that's why that's why when it comes down to what we're doing, what we're everyday life, if you aren't doing it, you have to examine your heart, examine the intention, but also if it was a mistake, examine what was going through your head at the time, and ask yourself like, was that applicable? Was that real? Was that true? And was that even pertaining to this? And I
True,
was just
true.
like, and you have to go through that and unpack all of that and just lay it out, especially when it comes to a business decision, because a lot of times when we go in there and um, when we go into things and we do things to our best ability, what happens is you either excel at it or you tank. And I mean, when you tank it, it's either or you're just like, oh, almost right there, and you almost did a good job, but you still tanked. It's like you either do it or you don't. And that's where and that's where now it's like with with being able to with being able to actually have the freedom to live and do something. That is where now we have an opportunity. We have an opportunity to actually say, you know what, I'm not going to allow something dumb to keep me from truly. What's up, Drew? I'm not going to allow something that I did in the past keep me from what I can do right now, because that's what a lot of times perfection is. Like it's trying to make you time travel when you can't. It's like good luck, and and that's why,
Oh
yeah, and that's why,
man.
and that's a lot, especially when it comes to your work. Now, when it comes to your work, there are things that when you're performance based, it's performance based, and
Yep.
you have to rectify it and make sure it's done right. And I mean, I don't care how uncomfortable you are. I don't care the sacrifice. Get it done. And that, I mean, there's some stuff that I'm doing right now that there were some things that I jumped into. I'm like, oh crap, okay, great, boom, done. Nope, awesome, rectify, done. It's like, and this stuff happens every day, but it's something that where if you we have to be aware of it, and that way
Yep.
we can,
Yep.
to be able to make that
Yeah,
adjustment.
I think a lot of times, and I know for me, and I'm not sure if it's the same for you, that we get caught up in analysis paralysis, where
Yeah,
you're viewing literally everything that you have to do. You're looking at all your goals. You're like, how am I gonna get all this done? And then you try to shove it all into like this weird, like 24-hour period. Next thing you know, a few months go by, you're like living off of Red Bull and coffee and like wondering like, how did I ever do anything before? What is sleep? Make it worse if you have a kid or anything of that nature. And,
right.
the health impacts of that are immense,
Terrible.
right? Mental health, it's damaging. Physically, relationships, emotionally, like it's just destructive all the way across the board. So
Yeah,
definitely, like I really love those points about getting it down. Like I literally have like my notebook here, making sure that I'm taking notes of everything, and your brain has enough that it's doing on a day-to-day basis.
no
Free
kidding.
up that capacity to do what it's really, really good at, right? And that's like getting stuff done, like figuring out the pattern, figuring out the gaps, and taking
Right,
those necessary risks to move across. And I feel like that faith portion when you're forgiving yourself is huge, right? You have to trust yourself and say, yeah, I may have messed up, but I
right,
still have a chance to be better in this next minute, the next, thing going forward. And that's kind of how my own little mantra of always upward, I guess, came to being. Where we're gonna fall, we're gonna stumble, but I feel like that in that falling, it gives you the perspective needed to really change and do something even better, where you're kind of
right.
like, wow, this is really, really cool. Um,
Mhm.
and so it's amazing how just something so simple, so little can have a huge, huge impact. Um, so as we kind of go into the last bit of our interview here, I want to ask you a few fire round questions, if you will. Um, I guess the cliche one is, what is a good book that you've read this year that has an impact, whether it's on the topic of forgiveness, branding?
Hmm.
What's something you recommend people to read?
Intentional Living by John Maxwell.
Ooh, that's a good choice.
It's good. It's on Audible, Kindle, hardback. It's great. I mean, it talks about how um, talks about how your story has merit still, and that just your value and your identity. And I had gotten the book right after I saw John Maxwell on stage about 4 months ago, and it was incredible.
Wow.
And yeah, and it was, oh man, that book. I mean, because I love listening to audiobooks. So yeah, Intentional Living by
They're
John
handy.
Maxwell.
They're useful, man. I listen to them when I'm driving, like either that podcast. They're helpful falling asleep, like that subconscious part of your brain that's drifting off retains a lot of
Mhm.
information and can solve a lot of problems too.
Right.
So yeah, that's really really cool. So in that, like, what really is the biggest challenge I guess you faced this year in being able to level up and get that, that hard part of your project or thing that you've been dreaming on?
Finding the right business partner.
Oh boy, that sounds that's a similar feel. Hmm.
Yes.
We can spend quite a while there.
Yeah.
I think
The
that's
fire round questions.
honestly, that is a thing I think I've had to forgive myself for this year, where I was like, you know what? It's not really my fault. Like I did as much due diligence as possible. Yes, I could have
Yeah.
listened more, and that was like the number one lesson that I took away from it. But in the end, I was actually able to accomplish a whole lot more because of that thing happening.
Well, the
So
my where I fell short at was making the decision out of necessity.
ooh,
And it created unnecessary pressure and just other stuff. I mean, honestly, it was just where a previous business partner had, I didn't. I was just going to jump out and do something, and yeah, it was insane. And so finally have a good business partner, and now we're working together doing some phenomenal stuff. And I mean, we're putting together a mind map right now, which is honestly incredible. But it's now to the point of where you have to when finding that business partner, you have to be able to take a step back and breathe,
yep,
and know that not to go at it as a point of need because you then have no leverage, or
yep.
you have little to no leverage because of the emotional state, and so that's where whatever that looks like for that person to regain that security or regain that confidence to be able to make that strong decision because a lot of times when it comes down to finding the right partner, you have to have a thing with a clear head. You have to be able to communicate and be able to get things rolling. And that's why finding that partner, if any partner, is good. But yeah, you partner up on your strengths.
Yep. Um,
He's
my
logistics.
partner, when it comes to, a lot of things, is my wife, right? So we run our agency together. And the number one question that we often get is like, how do you two work together? Number one, lots of communication, like that's absolutely important. Um, and then also not really taking things personal during office hours. Like it's about the job, it's about growing together, it's about building something that has a worthwhile legacy. But then when it comes to our external partners, right? Like one that I met with this morning, we've been working together for, I want to say the past 4 or 5 years now. And every time we catch up and we're talking about things and we realize that, we're working on things similar, it's a very beautiful feeling. But then on the flip side, I've had partnerships where, there's a lot of great talk in the beginning. You start working on things, and then next thing you know, you're kind of out a ton of money, and, that is the end of the story, and you're just kind of like trying to lick your wounds and move on.
Let
Um,
me ask you on that note right there.
yeah.
Is that when you guys found out money was going out the window? How many different were you working on three or more projects at once?
Yes. So it was multiple projects with different like ways of them coming in-house. So whether referrals, partnerships, speaking engagements, website funnels. So it was a good mix, but then it was really noticing where I really started noticing on the emotional level, to be quite honest with you. Noticing that the creative team was feeling drained working on certain projects, with for this particular partner. We're feeling like we're being misled constantly. There was a lot of like shady conversations and, things that once you look back in hindsight, you can easily see.
Right.
But going through it, it's just kind of like, okay, yeah, everyone is struggling. We're all trying to do things. Like, there's just a lot happening right now. But the reality of it was really just noticing that the creative team really wasn't enjoying doing what they do every day. And that was where I was like, all right, something needs to change. The creative is the ultimate variable in anything that you're doing. And I have to keep those creatives happy, whether that's me as a creative, my wife as a partner, or anyone that we're bringing in on our team. So that's kind of where I
Right.
notice. Yeah, yeah.
That's
Um,
yeah.
it's crazy, just absolutely crazy, man. So my next question in all of that, we stumble, we fall, and we're looking upward, and we're aiming always upward. What to you does always upward mean?
Progress.
Hmm.
Progress.
I like it.
We-
I mean,
Like
it's literally just that.
I mean, because think about, I mean, we always hear onward and upward, but we think about it as vast vision.
Yeah,
it's like
yeah.
here's us, and we go, and we just see over like eagle eye view,
Overnight success.
Right? And it's like, I get that, but it's just one step at a time, and celebrate the small things, enjoy the moments, the little moments. Like seriously, like the people in front of you, like there are times when you can do get on social media and do stuff, but like it doesn't really matter if it doesn't connect with people. And if you can't connect with people
Yep.
in person, there's no way in the world that you can genuinely, authentically, and raw authentically connect with people in
Thank
social media.
you. I always tell people that social media starts offline, and
Yeah.
they look at me and laugh. Like, if you- it's people behind that username, people behind that account, the picture, the funny meme. It's someone that had a creative spark, an aha moment, and shared that moment of vulnerability with the world, and people connected to it. And that's literally, what it is. So I love that. Always upward is progress, being better than the day before, whether that's taking giant steps or fast steps or going at, a slow and steady pace. But as long as you keep moving forward, I think that's the biggest deal. Um, so how do people find you online? How do they interact with you? Like, how do they continue this awesomeness?
Honestly, they can just Google my first and last name and my stuff will pop up. It's honestly that's the best way to do it. I'm on Facebook and LinkedIn more so now. But yeah, you can just Google my first and last name. My LinkedIn will pop up. And you can connect with me over there because I hit the 5,000 currently on Facebook too much. It gets annoying. And so, but it's yeah, you can just Google my first and last name, and my LinkedIn pops up. It's not like I have a lot of competition in the world for Jeremy Winger, but like mine's number one in the world, and yeah, it's kind of cool to say that, but it's like yeah, whatever. And so but yeah, just Google my first and last name, go to the browser, boop, type it in, or they can connect with me here on Facebook and follow or whatever. I mean, it's totally up to them, and I just care about conversation and connecting. And so if there are people who are on the live stream, they please message me. Let's just have a conversation and actually connect because that's what I'm passionate about. I mean, we ended up launching a LinkedIn course about the 5 ways to explode your organic traffic on LinkedIn and how I've gone from 6,100 to over 11,500 and something, or 11,700 since Thanksgiving. So,
Wow.
give it a couple, by tomorrow night or so, it'll have hit 12,000. I want to hit the 12,031, 12,001, 12,131. And so that way I can effectively say I doubled it, or 6,000
Thanks.
or 12,250, whatever. And so that way I can officially say I doubled it since Thanksgiving would be kind of cool. But doing it to where it's all driven by conversation. And so, yeah, just Google my first and last name, but don't just like follow me, actually message me. Like
Yep.
that's,
Engagement is key.
yeah,
So key. That's awesome. And I also dropped the links for that here in the event so people can also find it a little bit easier. And before
yep.
we wrap up, what's one piece of actionable advice that you believe that people should put into practice today that will help them continue their journey always upward?
Hmm. Let's see. Well, I just said this. Like, this is the first thing that comes to mind is that, you know, keep in the back of your mind. It's not going to be something that it's a new set of rules for people to do, but just keep the seed thought in the back of your mind that if anybody talks negatively against you or just absolute jerk, look at that not as them being a jerk. Look at them in the perspective or the view of saying, okay, this is a person that is actually interacting with me, and
Hmm.
I can actually be polite and speak to them in a way that I know that they could act in a way that setting personal boundaries with the way that they should act.
Hmm.
And so that way it brings in that framework of saying, okay, you know what, you're not going to talk to me like this, but I want you to know that I care about you and that we're gonna work together, have a lot of fun, and just smile because a calm response always kindles anger, or it just makes them even angrier because it's starting to eat at them. They can't really fight it, and so. I mean, then again, sometimes you got to be stern with people and just say, "Look, dude, like, not cool. This ain't happening," and set up
True,
those boundaries.
true.
But set up those that structure that where it shows what they should do, so that way that relationship can become what you know it could. And so, but it all starts with seeing that person and saying, you know what, I'm the conduit. I'm not the reason for why they're acting the way they're doing, but this is an opportunity that where my me being polite and also being firm and standing my ground can break through that wall, and I've seen it happen time and time again.
That's so powerful. I mean, heaping coals of kindness has been like my number one go-to strategy.
That's what happened
I
helped me
should
with my
probably
dad.
I should try it with the lawn people because I feel like every time I do like an interview, phone call, or anything that like that's they have a magnet that draws them out. Um, but
Or you should just
it's
schedule
one of those.
better.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to look at your schedule for when you guys plan on being around, my property here. But one of the things that has always worked is like I like baking, right? And many times I end up in an office situation where I have kind of like an in-office like rival. And back during my corporate days, what I would do, I would just like bake people's favorite stuff, right? So one girl had like carrot cake was her jam. One year I did, I think it was like red velvet cheesecake cookies just to like do something festive, but I wanted to share that joy with people. And you're oftentimes in these environments with your clients, with your colleagues, and you don't realize that, like we were saying earlier, they're people. They have things they enjoy, things that they're looking at, things that they may have on their mind that just may come out at you. And your reaction to that is so key and so vital. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, definitely
And
enjoy.
here's the thing, they can tell when you're faking it because it says it in
So
all of
true.
your body language.
Hmm. Hmm. And that's the thing I think I've enjoyed the most about being an introvert is at first it was very, very hard, right? Talking to large groups of people or whatever, standing up on stage, even doing Facebook Lives. But then after a while, I realized, they're people too, right? I've observed them. They're doing the things that I'm trying to do with my life, which is aim upward, be better, leave a legacy, provide for my, sequel, and those kind of things in life. But, you know, that rat race, the rush to constantly do things, get things done, oftentimes removes that humanity from, our day-to-day lives. So I really, really do love that. That's really practical, actionable, and doesn't even cost anything to do. That's like the great part about
Oh,
it.
it does. Just not money.
True, true. This is true. This is true. This is so true.
There's
But
definitely a price
Jeff,
for it.
it it has been amazing meeting you, number one. Um,
Likewise.
I've just I don't know, there's just so much that I envision that we could accomplish together. Um, but more so, I really, really appreciate you taking the time out to share your story, share some actionable advice with the audience. Um, and man, just keep doing awesome things in the world.
Yeah, you too, man. It's always good to connect with other people who have a kindred spirit. So I'm really excited for it.
It's always great. But yeah, guys, so if you're watching this on the replay, go ahead and leave a replay comment. Let Jeremy know how much you have enjoyed his just insight, his knowledge, his energy, which has just been really good. Like it's not a whole lot, but you feel like you're gaining a lot from, that experience and that, transaction. So really, really do appreciate it once again. And of course, the links will be below. And see you in our second episode coming up. Not sure what that's going to be
Woo!
about, but I'm
Who
excited.
cares?
Bye.